Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to Gratitude Level Up, week 5 of our 6-week series. Holy cow, y'all! This one and one more week, and we are done! Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. You have absolutely no idea how grateful I am to have had the opportunity to just dive into gratitude in all of its glory with you guys. This has just been an amazing experience, and I've just been so grateful to see the impact that it's created and just all of it. So I want to preface by saying thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So if you are just joining us, I always start with this. If you're just joining us, I would encourage you to stop this video and go watch the other ones first. These videos do build on each other. And so we will talk a little bit about what we talked about last week, and it'll make much more sense for you should you have seen last week's video. So what have we talked about so far? So week 1, we talked about what is physical gratitude. Week 2, we talked about what does gratitude look like at my job. Week 3, we talked about what should gratitude look like at home. Last week, we talked about gratitude and self-love and why that's important. And this week, we're going to talk about gratitude and mental health. Y'all, this is a big deal. This week is like the week. This week is the reason, this is the week that we talk about why we're even doing this. This is the week that we get really, really real. Really real. So to start this video, I am going to tell you guys my story. When I was a little girl, my dad was in oil and gas. We traveled around quite a bit growing up. I have lived in a bunch of cool states, and I ended up here in Texas in 2006. So I'm a Houstonian now. I'm in Houston, and I love the state and the city. I've grown to love it. Haven't always loved it for a good reason. In 2006, my family and I ended up here. My dad went to work for a very large oil and gas company. He was working at a Texas City plant, and my family and I ended up in the League City area. Life was really good. Yeah, like really, really good. My dad was the sole provider for my family. My mom had the opportunity to stay home with my sister and I, and life was like really, really good. You know, like my yesterdays looked like my todays. My tomorrows were always really expected to look exactly the same. There wasn't much change. Life was what you would probably describe, had you have known me, postcard perfect. We even had a little white dog to match, y'all. And I think my sister and I wore matching outfits up until I was probably 10. There's about 4 years between my sister and I, so if you can imagine, a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old walking around in matching sailor outfits. It was super cute, but as a 10-year-old, super not cool. Anyway, life was great. Life was awesome. And I grew up with my dad as my absolute best friend. My dad was the epitome of a childhood hero. He was so smart. So friggin' smart. The man was a genius. He was brilliant. Brilliantly smart. And he was so humble. He could walk in a room and you instantly knew he was the smartest guy in the room, but he never needed to say it. You just kind of knew. He was so loving and fiercely protective of what he valued. His girls, my sister and I, my mom. He was my best friend. He was what I wanted to grow up to become. And I still do. Daddy's little girl does not begin to describe that relationship. He was my whole world. On October 5th of 2006, I said goodnight to my dad for the last time. And on October 6th of 2006, I woke up to the devastating news that my dad had passed away in the middle of the night. And that would be one thing, if that was it. Turns out, my dad chose to die. My best friend in the whole world killed himself. And everything changed. My whole life turned upside down in a matter of 24 hours. Everything changed. Everything changed. My whole perspective on living changed. My perspective on life changed. Everything shifted like that. I spent the next decade of life, so that was 13 years ago, I spent the next decade of life trying to understand what happened. How could somebody so strong and so together and so rock-ish, like just stable and secure and like, how could somebody like that fall apart without their best little friend, their little girl, knowing? How could somebody I looked up to and lived in the same house with fall apart without me having any clue it was happening? How? When I was a high school senior, deciding where I was going to go to school, I decided to go to the University of Houston. And I became a student within what's referred to as the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, which is one of the best undergraduate entrepreneurship programs in the country. And I do not say that to toot my own horn, like, oh, I went to a really great program. No. I say that because that program changed my life. And the ranking of that program is worth noting because it is ranked appropriately. It changes lives. So I went through, as a student, the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship. I have my undergraduate degree in business and focus on entrepreneurship. And the nature of the program, it's very tight-knit, very close-knit. There were 36 students within my class. The classes really never exceed 40 undergraduate students at a time. There's a really healthy, diverse mix of us. Non-traditional students, traditional students, younger students. Like, there's a really healthy mix of people in all walks of life. So when I was a student, one of my superiors, if you will, so the class right above me, one of my classmates, his name was Cameron. Cameron died. And it really, really struck a chord with all of us within the program, and especially me, because Cameron committed suicide. And I think at that point, I just kind of snapped. I think at that point, my heart it finally broke. It just finally just did that and just kind of fell. Because Cameron left behind 2 little girls, very close in age to the age my sister and I were when we lost our dad. And it struck a chord with all of us, right? Losing people you love does. But the nature of how we lost Cameron was just like, really? Are we really doing this again? And that same sentiment, that same wave of how did we miss this? How did we not know? Sent me into this spiral of, well, what can I do? As a student within the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Houston, students are encouraged to kind of go forth and conquer what their hearts are passionate about, right? As for some of us, that's like cold pressed juices. For some of us, that is production, like digital production. For some of us, that's art. For others of us, maybe it's starting a roofing company. For some, it's music, right? For some, it's real estate. It just kind of depends. We're a bit of a hodgepodge of students, all very passionate about creating, but we all want to create different things. When I was a student, I decided that I was going to build something that did something about suicide. So I did a lot of research, and I started with where I was. I did a lot of research on the state of mental health on college campuses. And the reason why was because I lost Cameron, and I had already gone through suicide. And Cameron also committed suicide. And so this wave of what can I do? What is within my capacity as the average Joe? What can I do to create some sort of positive impact to prevent people from taking their own life? And I did a lot of research on, because I was a student in college at the time, I did a lot of research on the state of mental health amongst college students. And I'll share with you a little bit of what I learned. Suicide is actually the second highest cause of death amongst college students. 1 in 12 college students actually have a suicide plan in place. So at the University of Houston, that's about 3,600 students with the plan to take their life. Suicide in America is daunting. On average, every 40 seconds, somebody commits suicide in this country. And it's not slowing down. What's even more interesting, is kind of what my research led me to discover next, was, well, why? Why is suicide so prevalent within this college student population? And originally I thought, well, maybe it's because people don't feel empowered to get help. And while in some cases that's true, at the University of Houston, where I was, told a much different story. And that story was that it wasn't so much that students didn't want help. It was more like there wasn't enough supply to meet demand. And let me, kind of break that down for you. The counseling center at the University of Houston, there is an international ratio or standard that universities should be upholding when it comes to how many counselors are available to students on campus. That international standard, it's put forth by the International Association of Counseling Services. That ratio is 1 counselor should be available for every 1,500 students. At the University of Houston, that ratio sits right at 1 counselor available for every 2,728 students. Okay, so there's not enough counselors to help students. And what's happening is over the past, I think it's the past year and a half, the utilization of mental health resources at the University of Houston has jumped to over 70%. Okay, so the utilization of mental health resources is something that students are attempting to do. Students are trying to get help. The issue has become there's not enough supply to meet demand. There's not enough funding to hire more counselors. There's not enough space as of now for a better facility to be built. Mental health is not something that's publicly funded or funded by the state. It is something that's entirely funded by donations and benefactors and people committed to the mental health of students. And because it is not something that's widely talked about, the fact that 6 students have committed suicide on campus in the past 5 years is not, because that's not talked about, not a lot of change happens. So I learned a lot of heartbreaking things, which led me to want to understand, and kind of the point here for this week, well, what can I do within my capacity? So my intention to understand what the average Joes of us of the world could do to be crusaders, right? People on a mission to prevent suicide from happening, led me to learn a couple of really important things. And those really important things kind of are summed up into 3 big pillars. And that is the point of this week. There are 3 fundamental things that you and I need to lead happy and healthier lives, as cliche as that sounds. The 3 things. The first is you and I have to know that we're loved. The second thing is you and I have to know that we are worthy and deserving of this life and of being here. And the third thing is you and I can't live life knowing or thinking that we're invisible. We have to feel seen and acknowledged. For me, learning about those three needs, if you will, to lead a happier and healthier life, to increase the likelihood of us sticking around this earth a little bit longer, was summed up very, very plainly and simply. And for me, those three things happen through physical gratitude. When you and I get out of our head about appreciating the people around us, we communicate to them that they're loved. We communicate their worthiness and value because we indicate to them that they are contributing to our lives. And we see them, right? We are physically acknowledging them. Therefore, they're not invisible. And when we receive physical acts of gratitude, those things happen as well. We feel loved. We feel valued. We're positively contributing to somebody's life. And we feel seen and acknowledged. Like somebody sees us and is paying attention to us. You know, and what's even more interesting is that studies over and over and over and over and over and over ago show that the physical expression of gratitude improves, as we've discussed, the physical, emotional, and mental well-being of us and those around us. Physical gratitude is linked to lowering levels of depression and improving one's overall quality of life. Something very powerful happens when you and I get out of our head about appreciating those around us. Something very, very, very powerful happens. And so I made it my personal mission to run with that. So as a student and while a student within the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, I launched Grateful and Company. And that's why this web series exists. That's why you're watching this. That's why it is a thing. Because I was hell-bent on making people know how important gratitude is. Because within my average Joe capacity and within your average Joe, average Jane, whatever capacity, you and I have real power. And while we're not all like counselors and licensed clinicians and psychologists and psychiatrists, and Lord knows I don't profess to be one because that is a role that I am not built for, and it's one that is so desperately needed. But that is not me. And that's not the majority of us. It is important still to know that there are things that you and I should be aware of and can do to create positive change. And one of the easiest things that you and I can do, and one of the most impactful things that you and I can do, is to tell the people around us that we value them, and that we love them, and that we appreciate them, right? That's why Grateful and Company exists. That's our goal, that's our mission. We want to radically recreate an awareness for physical gratitude through recognizing our self-worth, acknowledging the value in the people around us, and to do both of those things through physical acts of appreciation with the sole intention of ending suicide. So there you go. That's why we're here. Now, that being said, right, like it is important to tell you guys, gratitude is powerful. It is not a replacement, though, for getting mental health help. In no way, shape, or form am I advocating, let this be on record, I am not advocating for you to put off getting professional help or seeking out counseling or going to see a therapist because you think that I'm telling you that, just going outside and saying that you're grateful for something is enough. No. Depression, y'all, and mental health illnesses are illnesses. They're illnesses. And there are things that you and I can do to create better lives for ourselves that would positively impact or reduce the likelihood of us going through something, God forbid, like depression, like anxiety, like increased stress levels. And while gratitude has that effect, because it does, it is not a replacement for professional help. And I would always encourage you. My God, I wish that my dad did, right? I wish that he did. I would always push and encourage you to go get help. Think of it this way. If you broke your leg, would you go home and expect it to get better by itself? No. Your leg is broken. You need to go have it, put back together, put a cast on it, let it heal. It could get infected. You could lose your whole leg. Why is you not doing something about it a worthy excuse. Like, it's not. And you wouldn't do that, right? If you and I had a big gaping cut or a wound, we're going to go to the doctor so we don't get any more sick, right? So why is our mental health any different? Why is our approach to taking care of our head and our heart any different than how we might handle, a wound or a cut or a broken bone? So please let this be my testament to, this series and what we're talking about and gratitude. It is powerful and important and notable and crucial. It is not a replacement for mental health help. If you need mental health help, if you are really dealing with, like, you're in the trenches, you are, dealing with depression and anxiety, like, getting help is honorable and it's okay. And you are so brave for doing it. You are so brave for doing it. Healing doesn't happen without the doctor, but summoning a grateful mindset throughout it is wildly helpful. And what it does is it shifts our perspective, right? Especially if we're just in a season of doubt and we're in a season of, I don't really know, am I really worthy? Like, do I actually have a place here? Physical gratitude says yes, right? When you and I practice gratitude for the stuff around us, at our jobs, in our homes, outside, in ourselves, we are affirming to ourselves, no, like, there are good things in my life. There are positive contributions that are being made by things and people and places that make my life worth living. And when we practice physical gratitude, like, hey, I really appreciate you. I see you and thank you. And, I love you. And I really I'm acknowledging what you do for me. That is also powerful for us because that tells our brain, hey, we like that. We like it when we practice gratitude. Remember when we talked a couple weeks ago about how physical gratitude actually activates regions of our brain that are directly connected to the neurotransmitter dopamine, right? So our brain thinks it's getting rewarded every time we practice gratitude. Isn't that crazy? So in season, like hard seasons, like difficult seasons where maybe we're questioning our worth, gratitude says, heck yeah, you're worth it. Heck yeah, you have so many reasons for being here and for showing up and for waking up and for being a part of this. So that's the point of this week. Gratitude and your mental health are so deeply connected. And it is so important to remember that we actually have absolutely no idea what the people around us are going through, right? I had no idea my dad was dealing with that. I had no idea Cameron was dealing with what he was dealing with. I had no idea that other loved ones I've lost to suicide were dealing with what they were dealing with. And the reality is, I don't know what a lot of people are dealing with. And you don't either, because that's the nature of life. We walk around and we do what we need to do, but very rarely are we able to have intense, deep, life-altering conversations with every single human we pass, right? That's not how this works. But approaching relationships, approaching activities, approaching communication, approaching life with an attitude of gratitude safeguards our hearts and our minds from being ignorant to that. From being ignorant to I don't know what you're going through, but I need to get X, Y, and Z done, right? I don't know what you're going through, but I'm really tired and I just don't want to talk. Or, I have no idea what you're going through, why haven't you done what I need you to do? Instead, it's, I have no idea what you're going through, but, I saw that you did a really great job last week, and I just want you to know that I really appreciate it. Or, hey, I'm exhausted, but I really, really appreciate, I want to tell you, thank you for just being patient with me. Thank you. It really means a lot. Or, this season is hard. I just got, maybe you just got laid off. Things are not going the way that you imagined them to go, and it is just a lot of self-doubt. Gratitude says, yo, there is good stuff though. Even in the tunnel, when it is dark, y'all, it's a tunnel. A tunnel's got two ends. There is a way out, right? And what's to come is worth being grateful for. So my challenge for you this week, I want you to focus on our three needs, right? Knowing that we're loved and seen, right? So knowing that we're loved and valued, knowing that we're seen and we're not invisible, and And, knowing that we are worthy and deserving of this life, right? So not being invisible, feeling loved and valued, and knowing that we're worthy and deserving of this life. I want you to focus on those three needs, and I want you to answer these questions, okay? How are we being intentional with those around us, knowing that those three needs apply to everybody? How are you and I being intentional, knowing that our spouses, our children, our bosses, our teachers, our students, our friends, our colleagues, our coworkers, our families also have those three needs? They need to know they're loved. They need to know they're valued. They need to know they're worthy and deserving of this life and that they're not invisible. How are we being intentional, knowing that those three needs apply to them? Y'all, that's why Grateful and Company exists. And this week is powerful for me because this is where it all started. This is where this whole conversation began. Because somebody I loved more than life itself decided life wasn't worth living anymore because they didn't think that they were worthy. And I am here to tell you right now, you are. You are 100% worthy. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up everything. It'll be week 6, our final week to our Gratitude Level Up series. Thank you as always for being a part of this community and for engaging with us and coming back every week. Please come back next week as we wrap up this series. Thank you for being a member of the Grateful and Company community. I am just totally overwhelmed with appreciation and love for every single one of you guys. This would not exist without you guys. So stay tuned and we'll talk next week. Bye, guys.